Thank you, Commissioner, for submitting to our version of Shoot the Messenger. I think that you make a very good point initially that when you look at the sheer numbers of what we handle on that Metro North line in terms of trains and passengers carried safely, it's a remarkable track record, particularly if you keep in mind how ancient our infrastructure is. It's, to my mind, the existing safety issues we have with our bridges and some of our rails are sufficiently daunting without this recent trend. And unfortunately, no matter how many years you have a success, what we've seen in the past year, as Senator Boucher has said, or a year or two, can't be easily dismissed as coincidences. And that's why we're all here today. And I'm encouraged to hear that from a reactive standpoint, Metro North and DOT have done a nice job of jumping on and addressing the issues. The analytics are in place, but I prefer to focus on if nothing had happened, if we'd had pretty much a good track record without really these drastic incidents. It's the day-to-day kind of process, the inspections and the like, that concern me the most. Sort of the eyes on the train that are part of what we do every day and are part of the culture as you described. So I was taken aback a bit in response to Senator Boucher's question with regard to the undercover inspections. From my perspective, if somebody isn't doing their job, you fire them, but you don't get rid of the task if it's something you believe was worth doing. So I'm still not sure I understand the answer from the perspective of, if we thought it was important to do up to that point, and we're not doing it now, are we replacing it with something that is more effective or equally effective? And that are we confident that the people who need to be there on a day-to-day basis, and not just the conductors and the engineers, are actually aware of what's going on a day-to-day, regardless of what are reported incidents or reported safety issues? That's my first question.
So, I think you have to look at it this way. I'll give you my experience, which I think is comparable to the recent change at Metro North from New Jersey Transit. There were undercover people that were hired to do spotters, if you will, or mystery shoppers kind of thing. And frankly, we decided to discontinue it too, and we put managers into that task because we rode the train every day. And it's that independence, if you will, and the responsibility of management to address issues and to find them that worked. And in the end, it actually saved money and got better results. And I think this particular inspection program may not have been ideal. And I think if it works with managers, fine. And if not, we'll challenge them to do it a different way again later. The ability, though, for every employee to be responsible for identifying potential issues is really this concept of this confidential reporting system and a way to get information that is uniformly addressed by management. And Metro North actually practices a lot of that already. It's hard to tell you everything that Metro North does, and I don't know it all. But for example, they have monthly meetings of safety committees that are represented by labor and employees, frontline employees, leadership in the unions, as well as management. Those meetings come up to the president of Metro North to address issues every single month. I mean, so there's things that are already in place, and we're adding many, many layers on top of that. So I do think that issues are being identified and addressed. In many cases, the lack of knowledge of what those systems are is the void that makes us all uncomfortable. And that's why I'm trying to say as much as I can about what we're already doing, and with the idea that we can certainly improve every day beyond that. But I'm comfortable that Metro North is trying to do a lot of this to get, maybe it's a case of let's ask for a report on what they're finding so that we can report back to the committee on some of these issues and say, yeah, indeed, this inspection process by management is working.
And I think that's me to my other question, which is the nature of the relationship with Metro North. I would submit that when you've been working, whether you call it on a 5-year rolling contract or not, with somebody for 30 years, it's not necessarily really a contractual relationship as much as it's a long-standing relationship where, whether you want to call it the Stockholm effect or something else, you become very familiar with one another. And there is perhaps a comfort level, being sort of stuck in the existing paradigm where it's sometimes difficult to think about how things would be different. I think you've been challenged a little bit here, and we will challenge Metro North when we meet with their representatives as well. But it seems to me now you have a potential partner on the New York side of the line, which might be equally concerned. A lot of the incidents seem to be occurring on the Connecticut side, and that may change the calculus somewhat, which is now both sides may be reevaluating the nature of that relationship. And getting that context, the ability to take a step back beyond perhaps your routine analyses of the relationship or, as you say, monthly meetings, may be called for here. So I guess the question I'm asking is, do you see these recent instances as a call to action into working differently with the New York side of the equation in perhaps using the combined leverage to be more assertive in your relationship with Metro North, is the best way to put it?
Well, so I do think I agree with the concept that, a long-term relationship can become a comfortable relationship as opposed to, one that's constantly refreshed. What is new is that leadership at MTA has changed. When I come in with a background, from operations, and we've got someone like Gene with experience in that, and we can challenge it. And my deputy commissioner coming out of MBTA with that experience, there are fresh perspectives, and but that doesn't mean we're satisfied with performance ever on this, and we're constantly trying to work on it. In addition, I think that we've also seen USDOT and FRA and others saying this has got to change. We're coming in and we're going to come back and make the best railroad possible from the best experiences around the country. The team that FRA is bringing in is experts across the country about best practices in every part of the railroad. When they're finished in 60 days and we get that report, I think we're going to see some things to make Metro North even better. How that gets implemented through a contract or through a relationship is something we can certainly talk about and work on. I'd love to see it changed. I just want to do it the correct way. I'm concerned. I take very seriously the experience Connecticut had when we started paying 65% instead of 50% because we opened up the contract without being ready. So if we're going to do this, let's think about it and let's make sure we know what we want out of it and do it in a way that can be productive. So I think there's a lot of concerns about what's going on, but also I want to do, if we're going to do anything different, let's do it clearly being prepared and with outcomes that we want.
Well, thank you for being a good spokesperson for that, and I hope Metro North is, as you say, equally focused on the communication task as well and presents a timetable for all consumers to understand exactly how this is going to go about. And I will end with one quick note of dissent. I know that you've said that we have a good on-time record on Metro North. Coming from a community in which there are many commuters, that's still not the general impression. And maybe it's the way that we calculate on time. But again, that perception issue has not necessarily been resolved to the satisfaction of many people in Fairfield County.
Yeah, and I take the on-time performance question directly. First, it hasn't been what it should be, and it hasn't been what it experientially has been for the railroad. But there's a big difference between a calculated number that is an average over a period and a particular train incident that makes me late for something that I wanted to be at, and that's what sticks with me forever. And there's also a difference between the calculated number and if you ask the question, are you satisfied with on-time performance, and you rate it on a scale, it doesn't come out the same as 95% ever. You usually get a C, maybe a D, right? That's not 95%. And I think that's a reflection of every train and everybody's particular experience colors the overall calculation, and that's real, but that's real. And I think it's important to take the perceived on-time performance and begin to work on that as opposed to using the 95 or 96 or 92%, because that's misleading.
Agreed. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative Steinberg.